This. All right, and we are live everywhere on Facebook, sharing the screen, on YouTube as well. Welcome to 99 Grit. My name is Andy, and it is our vision here to inspire you to chase your dreams and turn those dreams into tangible design careers. Guys, it's a Monday. It's week number 2 of the coronavirus madness and the lockdown. So let me just break everything down. I hope that all of those are operational. You can see my screen. Yes, that's very good. For those of you watching on my personal life, my personal page on Facebook, if you want to see what I'm doing, go to 99 Grid and check it out over there. As all the action is actually going to be happening on the screen. Same goes for YouTube as well. But yeah, let's kick this off. So welcome, guys. It's a Monday morning. As I said, it's the second week of the Corona madness. And I just wanted to, share one more thing, and it's the final element of the design system. We've been doing this for 7 weeks now, I think, or something like that. So it's really exciting to be at the very end of the spec of the conversation about design systems. And yeah, I'm looking forward to some of the interactions. Leave a comment below if you're not watching this live, where you're watching this from. That'd be really interesting for us to know. And without further ado, let's just break it down and go back into the whole recap of what a design system is, and then cover the last final bit of it, which is copywriting. We've got quite a few elements to tackle today, and this is one of the elements that's pretty exciting to actually cover. So when it comes to design systems as a whole, let me just zoom in over here. Hopefully this will work. Yes. When it comes to design systems as a whole, I'll use a red color so that we can kind of recap of what we've done so far. So when it comes to design systems, as a recap to everybody watching, those design systems are a way to actually to interact with the user in a constant way. So it's built of a few elements, obviously, and we'll cover that. But a design system, as it stands, is basically an ecosystem of elements that are consistently interacting with the user in a consistent manner. And we need to put all of those elements together so that it's actually understandable and consistent to the user, so that wherever that user ends up being when they're actually clicking around and using our product or service online, so that they actually feel like they're in the same space, that they are in the same kind of ecosystem of elements. So therefore, the design system is there to help us to actually synthesize that information into something that's consistent and understandable to the user. So we've covered quite a few elements. As you can see, there's like typography, which is all the font faces. Are they like bold fonts? Are they some kind of slim and thin font faces? So that's one thing when it comes to the styling of the typography. The font face itself, are we using Arial? Are we using something more crazy than a web-safe font like that? So the actual typeface. Other elements, is it an uppercase, is it lowercase, what is the kerning of the font, etc. And all of the iconography actually ends up in the typography to me as well. So these are the elements that you would definitely need to actually have a look at. And we've covered that in detail in some of the previous lives. Definitely give it a watch. So typography is one thing. Hello, Miloš. Hello, Thomas. It's great to see you guys, that you're watching this live. That's awesome. I hope that the coronavirus is... And hello, Marcin. I hope that, that this coronavirus is actually keeping you guys occupied. It's actually keeping me more occupied than I anticipated initially. So typography is definitely one thing. Then we have all the colors. So all of the elements that kind of create this colorful ecosystem of elements. So the typography can have different colors, be interactive, etc. So the colors is something we need to specify, synthesize, and make consistent as well. Hello, Rafael. It's great to see you, man. And the third one, leave a comment below, guys. Leave a like. That'll be really cool to actually spread the word around that we're still alive within this whole, Corona madness, that we are not giving up and we are striving for the best. Spacing. So once we have all the typography, iconography, and all the colors specified, then we can specify the spacing of the elements. So kind of what is the module of the spacing? Is like certain amount of pixels, like 5, 7, 6, 8 pixels, whatever. Is it points, etc., etc. So the spacing helps us with building the grids and making sure that whatever happens over there is actually pretty useful and understandable to the user. So that's spacing. Then once we have the typography, iconography, colors, and spacing, we can start putting together some components, and then taking those components into actual templates and showing people how to do and how not to do some of the things. And then we have the interaction models, which we've covered in the previous live. So that's kind of the gist of what we've covered so far. And yeah, today what we are going to be covering today is the last but not least element when it comes to design systems, and that's copywriting. So let me just highlight the last little puzzle of our beautiful endeavor here. If you can hear some of the knocking noises or any sounds coming from the background, that's a construction site that's actually outside the windows over here. They actually made it to the top floor now, and they're right next to where I'm sitting. And they're pretty bloody noisy. So I'm really, I do apologize for the noise that you might be hearing. It's actually pretty quiet now, so it's not too bad. But I'm wearing my microphone because of that, and hopefully it's not too much of a drag. So we will cover copywriting today, which is the last, to me, but not the least element when it comes to design systems. But very often, this is the element that's being overlooked by some of the big, some of the big entities that run big projects, big products. And copywriting is something that people really kind of, I think, that diminish in a way, but that's one of the most important elements when it comes to actually design system design. So I'll break down some of the elements, and I'll show you on the example of Amazon.com or of some of their pages how they've tackled it and where I could see some of improvements that I would basically tackle it differently. So let me just hide this thing. And yeah, here we go. So this is the Amazon.com. This is a product page that we've been using so far very heavily. This DualShock 4 wireless controller in Magma Red. We've covered this in detail so far. I'm just looking at like 10 screens here, so bear with me that I'm losing some of the eye contact with you because I've got like 4 different cameras looking at me. So so the Magma controller, or the PlayStation 4 controller that we've looked at previously, I'm going to use this example to actually showcase some of the copywriting elements. Well, there's a few things that I would like to make sure that you can cover with your designs when it comes to design systems. And definitely, well, the first thing is when it comes to copywriting, it's about the readability, how people read our web page. So it's all about not just the typography, not just the color, the spacing of elements, but it's actually how readable and engaging the content is from the perspective of actually looking at the written word. And there's quite a few elements, but the first kind of element that I would want to highlight here is, let me just open up a new layer, do a full screen over here, and maybe lower the size of this crazy brush. And the first one is like it starts with an F. It's like an F word, but letter F actually it describes pretty well when it comes to that's letter F as best as I can draw it over here. But letter F actually, it's not about the F word here. It's more about the structure of how people digest content and how they actually look at it. Well, in most of Europe and most of the Americas, we read left to right, and the further down we go, we see a less and less of engagement with our eyes when it comes to the written word, unless we're reading a book. But if you're online and you're just scrolling through an article, if you do an eye tracking test, you can actually see the results being like this, that kind of the bulkier, the summary of the article at the very top kind of increases the engagement, so people kind of tend to look at that. And then once they start scrolling through the content, they notice less and less elements, and their focus when it comes to where their eye is actually meeting the interface is actually a little bit less so. So they kind of go more top down than left to right. The further down they go, unless they find something really interesting and engaging, and that's when they go back into this whole F letter, when they start to read a little bit more, and then kind of focus on one element and horizontally. And then once they're done with that, then they can just scroll down further and just keep on going. So it's kind of a two-way motion. It's like scrolling up and down the screen. And once you find something interesting, then you kind of focus on that. You start reading through it, and then you've read through it. You start scrolling further down, and if you do look at an eye tracking kind of test, this is the overall schematic that you actually can see when it comes to kind of reading through the content. So that's the first thing to remember, that we want to make sure that the content is structured in a way so that it's actually allowing for this ease of scrolling up scrolling down to make the content engaging, and on that basis actually stops the user from time to time to actually have a little bit of a read through. Because we're designing a page for a product, for example, like we do on Amazon.com, we're not designing a page for for reading. This is not the main case of this whole thing. So we want to keep it as engaging as possible. So that's one thing. So remember about the F word or the F structure of actually reading through the content. So that's the thing. That's the first element. The second element that I would like to put in front of you guys is the fold line. And that's the line at the bottom of the interface of your browser. So this is kind of the bottom element of the viewport. So whatever the user sees within the browser window or within the mobile phone window in the browser, or the app for that matter, whatever the person is looking at, the very bottom of that screen, I call it the fold line. So that's everything that you can see before you actually start scrolling through the content, right? So you want to make sure that there's something interesting for the user to actually interact with. Thanks very much for the like, Raphael. That's great. And great. Would love to actually catch up with you, man. I'm gonna reach out. And if you start scrolling through it, you need to have a reason for that. So as you can see here on Amazon, I'm not sure if this is something they have designed or not, but there's this about the product thing at the very bottom over here, right? So I scroll to the very top. I cannot scroll any further up, and this about the product kind of paragraph is right there looking at me. So it's kind of motivating me about, okay, I like the photographs, I like the price, I like the color, for example, and I would like to find out more about the product. And about the product, part of the interface is actually staring right at me in this beautifully designed orange font. And that kind of increases the engagement already. It's like, okay, let's see about the product. And we start to get into the content that's written word. And there's a few things. So the fold line is definitely something that I would encourage you to actually use in a conscious way to make sure that before the user actually starts to scroll through, you give him a little bit of a hint. And this can be about the product, something. There are interfaces when they kind of put a specific element called scroll down, or a little bit of an arrow, like an iconography that pushes people to actually scroll a little bit further down, so that they can see whatever's happening over there. Just bear with me. I'm gonna try and see if there's any kind of chat responses or anything like that. Okie dokie. Just bear with me. Oh, there you go. Okay, I just want to see the chat window, if anybody reaches out with some sort of a chat. Okay, so that's that. So the fold line is definitely something to consider. It's not a must, because I believe that there are a lot of people that are out there that say that the fold is one of the most important things, and people will never scroll down. It's like I'm not sure if that's a fact. That people, I think that there's a lot of people, me included, that tend to actually scroll if they find the content engaging right above the fold. I tend to scroll down to see what else is out there, because I find the content presented to me pretty interesting. So that's the thing. The F word and the fold line, that's the two things to start off with to consider when it comes to building your copywriting elements into the actual interface. So that's that. Then we go into the actual structure of the word or of the copywriting itself. So we've covered some of it when it comes to typography, and I'm going to use this example for the about the product thing over here. And there's a few things that I would change with this specific one, and that would be, first of all, the length of the actual paragraph, because it is a little bit longy. So hello, Jakub. Hello, Nina. Great to see you guys. It's a little bit lengthy, if you like. So the feel, shape, and sensitivity, etc. it's a very long paragraph. If you'd be kind of using this assessment or this assumption to create a book, it'll be really difficult for people to actually read it, because the eye is really getting, our eyeballs, our muscles, they tend to get really well, bogged down and kind of tired if you put something like that in front of the user, because it just requires a lot of effort to read through the elements and then move all the way back to the actual beginning of the sentence in the next line, because of the length of the actual paragraph. Because I need to really go back to the new multi-touch, etc. It's a little bit easier here because we have the bullet points. But if we didn't have those bullet points, like I'm sure I'll find an example somewhere around here on Amazon.com. Wow, yeah, that's the one. Like this one, it's really difficult to read. And when it comes to usable typography, and that's very closely connected to the copywriting, obviously, it's not just the typography, the font, the size, etc., but it's also the rules and constraints that we should be using to actually accommodate those elements. And that would be something that I would call, there's two things that I would really encourage for you guys to, well, actually three, but two to start with, that I would really encourage you guys to actually do when it comes to copywriting. And it's copywriting. And as I mentioned, it's pretty close to typography, because we're using the font to actually put some information together for the user to read. So the first one would be the length of the actual not the paragraph, but the length of the line of text. So the length of the line of text. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that will ship me for giving you this advice. But what I'm trying to do, whenever I am designing and I have a problem with typography, specifically on full HD, 1920 by 1080 interfaces, I mean screens that are very wide, 16 by 9, but I'm still trying to do it. Put additional columns if I need to. But the rule that I'm trying to follow is, I would say 85 to 90 symbols in one line, and that includes spaces. Spaces. So that's the first thing that I would try to follow, because when you do put something like that, let's actually make an example like that. So let's just stick in the lorem ipsum, obviously, as you do. Let me just maybe do a little bit more of those. Okay, like that. And let's turn it black, because I don't want this pinkish color to kill us. I don't want this font, obviously, to be uppercase. So I'm just gonna do that. And I want it to be left aligned, and I don't want it to be this bold. Let's just do a regular, right? Regular font. And why is it not black? There you go, black. So what I'm gonna try and do is actually count how many symbols do we have. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's like 80. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm almost perfectly on the actual verge of what I've actually written out. So let's 85 to 90. So let's maybe this et or et, whatever it's called. This is like 85 to 90 symbols in one line of text. So as you can see, this is a pretty substantial amount of letters put together, and spaces and commas, etc. And it seems like a good enough paragraph to be actually read. So that's that, and the kerning of this font is 100, so I'm going to change that to 0. So this is what we would start off with, to make sure that we don't have anything like this, because I'm sure that if I counted these ones, there's 120, maybe 130 symbols in one line of text, which is definitely too much. So that's that. Hello to everybody watching this online. If you would like to see what I'm actually doing here on the actual interface, I'm sharing the screen on the 99 Grid page. So if you want to see what I'm actually doing, definitely reach out to that one. But it's great that you're here. I hope that you're well and happy and healthy and keeping the distance. I don't know about you guys, but I really felt, and I try to stay, at home to actually do these things, and it's great. But I have to go to the shops from time to time, and it's just the feeling of tension and the distance in between people. It's overwhelming. It's really overwhelming, and it's really difficult to comprehend what we actually ended up, with this whole Corona madness. But yeah, let's just struggle on. So that's that. So the length of the actual line of text is something that we should totally consider and definitely have a look at. So that's one thing that I would definitely change with this paragraph when it comes to Amazon.com, to make sure that it's not that long, because it's too bloody long and it's hard to read, and the content is therefore really tiring, and the user is going to be like, it's not going to, you really need to be motivated to actually read through that stuff over here, because it's very, very long. So that's the first thing. The second element that I would definitely try to consider, and I always do that, is another rule that I would put for our beautiful copywriters trying to put some written text so that it's actually readable and engaging by the user. And I would put that one in. Let me just do that. And the second rule would be the line height. Line height. And that would be whatever size of the font you're using, it's 150% of the font height, of the X height, if you like. Some people call it font height, some people call it X height, X height. So that's the X height is actually, if you take the font itself, the X height is the actual distance, not between the high letters, because that increases there are two things when it comes to typography. This is an ascender, a letter ascender, and if you look at maybe a G letter, that's the descender of the font. So we just want the middle, so kind of the not a capitalized font, but a regular font, not uppercase, and that's the X height. So that stuff over here, that's X height. And we want the line heights to be 150% of the actual X height of the font. So if we look at the font itself, I'm just gonna use the Photoshop over here. So we have 18 pixels, and Photoshop is set to automatically actually adjust the line height for us. But if we use this assumption, I'm sure that we're going to end up with a nicer paragraph. It's going to be a little bit more, the space in between between the lines is going to be a little bit readable, a little bit more readable. So therefore, it's 150%. So you just calculate the 18. Let me just do that here. So we have what? So we have 18 pixels. So this one, let's just draw it over here. So that's 18 pixels times 150%, which is how much? If you had to guess, that's 18. Well, I'll just do it in memory. I just divide this by half to have the 50%, so that's 9, and 18 times 9, that's equal to 27, right? px. So I can then go to this little beautiful thing and go to actually highlight the layer, and I'm going to go 27 px. And there you go. And this is usable typography 101, guys. Let me just maybe move this bad boy. Actually, let me just move it this one a little bit further. Right? So just by using these two things that I would really encourage you to do, when you do put written text and you want it to be, easy to read for the user, whatever that text is, we're going to get into the actual content with copywriting. But just to kind of choose the right font, make it readable, is to have the 85 to 90 symbols, including spaces, within one line of text. That's the length of the line. And when it comes to the line height, so how high are the actual text lines, to make it as usable and as friendly to the user That's 150% of the actual X height. And that's, if you use these two things, you always end up with paragraphs that look nice. But now going back to the elements that relate to more kind of how to write the stuff in and how to make it engaging. We've covered the F word, the F structure of people reading and scrolling through the content. So that's kind of these elements that you allow for an ease of scroll and kind of highlight some of the elements to stop the user from scrolling to actually digest and kind of dive into the information. And obviously, the easiest way to do it is through those kind of elements. So kind of the article headlines, like product description or product information. I'm not even going to cover the fact that they have a different font here, a different font here, and probably a different font here, and a different font here, and a different font here for the actual headers of the paragraphs. But that's Amazon, and I just, that would be covered within the typography specs. I would make sure that we have the headers kind of specified and consistent right way throughout the pages. They obviously kind of leave a lot of room for improvement when it comes to that. So it's their choice. But about the product is something that is the easiest way to actually stop the user from scrolling. This is obviously also orange, so it kind of is more highlightable or more visible to the user because of the actual color. And then we have a big black bold font, have a question, then we have from the manufacturer, again, different font to this one, I think. And then we have some sort of a commercial material. And we have, again, the easiest way to do it, kind of highlighting that with these breaks in the actual content. So that allows for this thing. So you're able to scroll through the content and then stop the user at certain moments and make him or her read the stuff that you prepared for them. And if you use the other two things, so make it not long or not too long, 85 to 90 symbols, including spaces, and the line height should be 150% to make it nice and easy to read. And that's when you end up with these kind of paragraphs. So that's these two things. Now, when it comes to the element, when it comes to choosing the right, for example, the right font for your copywriting. Obviously, this one is, I think, the one that we've chosen here is, I think, Objective. Yeah, that's the one. So it's pretty bulky. It's pretty kind of wide. It's easy on the eyes, but you can like it or not. But it's definitely more readable than if we picked a font, for example, that's, let's say, Morganite, right? I mean, this kills this whole thing altogether. It's a nice font when you use it for big, bulky, artsy letters. I think that I have it over here on the nights are long, life is short, the main kind of tagline for making the shift, covered in one of our vlogs. And that's Morganite. So it only works when you have these big, huge, massive letters, and then that's it. If you want to use it in a paragraph, that would be the wrong choice, right? But if we go further, we can go and maybe do this, for example. So that's like Braille's, and that's, again, it really is a nice font when you want to kind of express that it's personal, that it's human, that it's natural, etc. But definitely not for long elements or long parts of paragraphs and text, because it's really hard to read. So therefore, the choice of the font definitely has a huge impact on the actual written word. That's why I'm getting into this so heavily, because you can have the greatest content to read, but if you're not giving the user the right font to read it with, it's going to be really hard. Whatever it's written there, it's going to be really hard for the guys to do. So that's that. So you can use something that's either a serif or sans serif font, but something readable like this. The serif fonts actually are more readable. Then their legibility is a lot higher than the sans serif fonts. But the sans serif fonts are modern and they look cool, etc. So let's use this one. So that's Objective, right? So that's the fonts themselves, and making sure that the structure allows for kind of breaking the content into pieces that you can actually engage the user with, following on the length and the line heights. That's something. Making sure that you pick the right font for the copywriting. That's another thing. And yeah, I think that pretty much when it comes to the structure of what I would cover in the design system, that's these things. additional elements of how to actually break some of those elements down and maybe add a little bit to it. Let me just go to Amazon. Where is it? Amazon. Just somebody's calling me. Amazon.com. Additional elements would be the standard things like bullet points that we saw somewhere around here to add the ease of the reading of the content itself. And also, as you can see here, it's a lot easier to read this part because it's got like 4 bullet points than it is to read this part, although it just has a return button pressed. So because there are no bullet points here, and it's not really. I think that it's like somebody gave it enough spaces to actually do this, and it's not left aligned properly. So it's a little bit messy, a little bit harder to read because of that, etc., etc. So that's something that you can always have a look at and actually increase the readability of your content through this. Changing of the fonts like color, semicolon, and then a bold magma red. That's also helping with the structure of the information as far as the copywriting is concerned. So that's when it comes to these elements. And obviously, I don't know if I'll find anything on Amazon.com that I could actually show you when it comes to some of the alerts. How do we communicate with the user when it comes to highlighting some of the elements when it comes to. But let me just type in UI alert. Maybe go to graphics and stuff like that, right? So when it comes to the copywriting, it's very heavily undervalued when it comes to the way we communicate with the user when they're making mistakes, for example, and making sure that we properly describe what has been done wrong within the interface itself, specifically when we try to validate some of the forms, etc. That's very crucial, and that is done through appropriate coloring, like you can see here within the alerts. So the red for the errors, the yellow for the warnings, the greens for the kind of success. You were great, our dear user, and you've successfully done what we were asking you to do as the designers or the product owners, and the blue ones for kind of information. This is pretty well and pretty broadly adopted by most of the interfaces to make sure that we actually can make them as usable and as possible. But the stuff that we actually stick into these, what is the wording of that, and how do we communicate with the user through those? That's definitely something that we need to sit down and consider, because we want to make sure that it is short, concise, and straight to the point. We don't want to put, again, a whole paragraph of information when we are just validating a simple field like an address, for example, that that there's a house number missing, and we're going to put a whole paragraph of text that, dear user, we are very sorry to inform you, but you have made a mistake, and that mistake is within the address form that we were asking you to actually fill out. Don't be too bogged down with it, because it's a very simple fix. All you need to do is type in, the number of the house, and you'll be good to go. Don't do it. I mean, it's too long, right? It's like, why should we put all of that stuff in front if we just want the user to put the house number in? So that's the thing that I would definitely stick into the error message. That's something that's really concise, concrete, and straight to the point, so that I can read through it quickly with additional kind of element when it comes to the iconography, for example, with the border being in red, and all of those elements that actually help me to get to it faster and then read through it and have let me be on my way, if you like. So that's something I would definitely consider, and make it concise, concrete, straight to the point, and making sure that you're actually covering the right aspects with this thing. So that's when it comes to copywriting, alerts. Is there anything else that I wanted to cover with you guys today? Unless there are any questions about the copywriting that you'd like me to cover, type in a comment on my private feed or the 99 Grid feed, or maybe the YouTube live as well, because that's going as well. So I'm reading and looking intently at the chat, and that's pretty much it, guys. So I think that if you use these simple rules of keeping it concise, remembering that with copywriting we have this F structure, and we want to kind of stop the user where we want him to stop and actually have a read through the content. So the F structure. When we do stop that person, we want to make sure that the content is straight to the point, engaging, and the length of the paragraph is like 85 to 90 symbols in one line, and the line height is 150% of the size of the font. And I'm sure that if you just use those assumptions and those kind of rules or constraints, you'll be on your way. You'll be able to create these elements more more usable elements to the user, so that people actually read through the stuff that we put online. And that's it, pretty much, guys, for the design system itself. So we've covered quite a few elements when it comes to the design system. So let me just close these ones off. And just to do a little bit of a recap of the design system, we've covered the typography, so the fonts and how to work with those, how to choose the right fonts specifically for copywriting as well. We've done the colors, the spacing, the components themselves, and I think that we've used a button as an example. We've covered the templates, how to put that all together. We've covered some of the interaction models. We've got some information about that, and we've got some stuff about the copywriting. So there's all of that has been put out there. We've covered some of it, some of it practically, somewhat theoretically, I'd say. But I'm really looking forward to some of the interactions and seeing if you find this useful, and seeing if this is something that you would like us to get into more, because the next lives that we would like to commit to, obviously, they're every Monday. We're thinking of kind of shifting them to the second part of the day, so definitely let us know if that would be something you'd be interested in. Unless we'll be doing like both parts of the day, like 10 a.m. in the morning and then like 8 p.m. at night. But we're kind of bending towards the evening lives because of the construction site is not there. The guys are not working. And obviously, we can then reach the Americas, which is pretty interesting for us as well. So what we would like to do in the future lives. All right, man. Great to see you. Great to hear, Michael. That's great. That's great. Well, thanks very much for pitching in. I'm hoping that it is useful, and you'll be able to use these simple rules. I mean, these are really simple. So the amount of symbols and the line height, and that increases the readability dramatically whenever you're designing anything. And then putting the right fonts in the right places, and obviously stopping the user when you want him to stop. So that's that. And what we would like to get into on our next live is probably going to be a little bit of a longer live, but what I would like to do is actually apply all of that knowledge, so the typography, color, spacing, components, templates, interactions, and copywriting, into redesigning Amazon.com's actual product page. So the one that we've looked at. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do all of this in one session. So it might be like 2 or 3. Or we might just be stuck here for 2 hours redesigning this thing live. But I want to kind of get into this, redesign this whole page. Maybe we'll go to the main page of Amazon.com, and we're going to redesign this whole thing from scratch using what we've just learned. And I think that'll go for the product page, because this is a little bit there's a little bit less work here on the main page. So I guess that I would go with the product page itself, and we will just apply all of those elements together. To make sure that we apply what we've learned very practically. And it's probably going to be, I would say, an hour, maybe an hour and a half, to do kind of redesign this panel, use some of the typography, some of it, kill some of it, download the photographs, and just put it together. And hopefully you'll be able to kind of correspond with that, ask some questions when I do that. But it is going to take a little bit longer, and I'll just go right the way through it, and hopefully there'll be something useful for you guys. So let me know in the comments if this is something that you would like us to get into more. If there are any questions to the elements we've described when it comes to design systems as a whole, definitely reach out to us, and we'd be happy to respond with vigor. And we'll be obviously putting this online on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., all of the places where we're at. And don't be a stranger. Reach out to us, and we'd be happy to respond. And have a glorious, safe, healthy week ahead of you. We'll be definitely in touch, publishing some of the design vlogs and vision vlogs, etc. So I hope that I'll see you next Thursday at 8 p.m. We'll be covering and doing a webinar on design thinking, a masterclass, and we'll be doing kind of an immersive look at the design thinking as a whole, as a concept, and we'll be doing in a little bit more about experience mapping. So I'm looking forward to interacting with you on that as well. And yeah, without further ado, guys, have a great week. I hope that you've enjoyed what we've done so far. If you have any questions, reach out to us via LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we'll be happy to respond. And have fun, have a great week, and I will see you around, guys. Thanks very much. I'll see you. And the YouTube. I'll see you guys around.